So, how many of you remember what the main issue was why we joined World War I? Not the causes of World War I, but why we joined. Why did the United States join, Manny? They sunk one of our ships, right? It's a key point right there. So we'll talk about those causes for why the U.S. joined in a little bit, but what I want to do first, thank you, is talk about why the war started in the first place, okay? Michael. The last, did you say the last port? Is that what you said?
Wasn't Germany trying to because weren't there a battle between Poland and Germany, or was that going to World War II?
That was World War II, yeah. In 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. Okay. So that's good that you remember this though, because it has to do with World War II as well. So here's the deal. At this time in Europe, I'm talking about 1914, okay? Not 2016. 1914. There's 5 main factors, and again, I'm telling you this as an oversimplified version. Of course, there's a lot of other things that cause the war, but the main 5 issues are these. I summarize them in this acronym called MANIA. Okay? So if you remember these 5 letters, you'll remember why World War I started in the first place. Okay? Why militarism? What's that have to do with anything?
To show which military was the strongest.
Okay, so in Europe, militaries were growing their power exponentially. They were becoming really, really strong, right? To the point where one military grew and the others around it had to kind of catch up. And then they were overpowering that original military and they were just kind of growing and growing and growing, right? That's militarism in a nutshell. Then you have the assassination of a Austro-Hungarian prince, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, by a Serbian nationalist. He shoots him there in the middle of a parade. And that triggers one country, which is Austria-Hungary, to declare war on another, which is Serbia. And then these alliances that were formed at the same time caused countries to go against each other. It's like you're in the cafeteria and someone comes and punches your buddy, right? All of a sudden you have a decision to make. Am I going to back him up or am I going to just leave the cafeteria, right? Right? So that's the same thing that happens here. Now the other 2 issues are easier to understand because at the time, Europe had a lot of imperial possessions around the world. Like, Europe was becoming an imperial power. It was acquiring parts of Asia, parts of China, parts of Africa. So all these places were already owned by European nations like Great Britain, France, and Spain. Okay? And then you have this feeling of nationalism. This is essentially what causes this assassination. Okay? Nationalism, what does that feeling mean? What is that idea of nationalism? What does that mean?
You feel strong towards your nation. Strong pride in your nation.
Feel strong pride in your nation. So how would that drive you to, for example, kill someone for your nation? Because your idea is that you're the best nation. What did you say, Alamio? I'm sorry? Don't feel afraid, okay? Straight fire. So look, the issue here is that these are the 5 main causes for World War I. I'm not saying U.S. involvement, okay? Which brings me to that, actually. Let's just talk about this one slide that I have here. If you don't know who fought against who in World War I, this summarizes it for you real quick. These are the Triple Entente, the good guys, okay? The Central Powers, they call them. And these are the Axis powers, the bad guys, right? There's really not, depends on who you ask who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. But just so you know, these are the 2 sides, okay? These countries fought against those over there, and those were the ones that lost the war. Alex. Later in the war, they joined us. They were against us, yeah, correct. Now, these are the countries at the time in 1914. Of all these countries here, one major country dissolved after the war. Which one do you think it is?
Soviet Union.
The Ottoman Empire. Good. Those of you that remember world history, this country became another country. What country is it now? Starts with a T. Turkey. Thank you. Turkey. Turkey. That became the nation of Turkey. Now, of course, we don't have an Austria-Hungary anymore. Poland and the Russian Empire divided into a bunch of little microstates, which we'll get into later. But right now, suffice it to say that you just need to know where these countries are located in Europe. That's basically it. Now, this brings me to why we joined. Okay, the U.S. was friends with Great Britain, but they didn't join the war until 1917. Now, I was asking you at the beginning what caused us to join, and you told me something about a ship being sunk, and now you're telling me something about U-boats. So let's clarify that. Let me bring open a sheet of paper here so we can write some notes. Okay. So if you remember this, it'll help you remember why we joined the war. I'm going to use it with blue. Okay. If you remember this acronym here, azul, which is the word blue in Spanish. If you remember that, you'll understand why we joined World War I. Okay. You mentioned a ship, Manny. Do you know which letter here that ship has to do with? You're going to go with Nava.
No? Okay.
So there's a ship at the end of the movie Titanic that rescues Rose from the wreck of the Titanic. Does anybody remember what that ship's name is?
Mr. Final answer to you.
So the name of the ship that was sunk by German U-boats is called the Lusitania. Okay? You did, Alamio? I didn't even hear that. Okay? So the Lusitania. This ship was sunk by a German U-boat. Okay? Now, a U-boat is what? What is a U-boat? Submarine. The reason they're called U-boats is because they come from Germany. They were manufactured and invented in Germany. And it's a German word, Unterseebooten, I think it is, which literally means underwater boat. Okay? And those Unterseebootens, what they were doing along the Atlantic Ocean was sinking ships that were aiding the enemies of Germany, which in this case the United States was doing. The United States was aiding Great Britain at the time, which brings me to the A. What do you think the A stands for? Alliance. Between who and who? Good. So alliance between U.S. and Great Britain, right? What about the Z, though? It's interesting. What's the Z about?
Zulu.
So if you remember when we did the documents here in the stations, there was one document that mentioned a note that was sent from Germany to Mexico. Does anyone remember what that was?
Oh,
It doesn't start with O, it starts with Z.
it's the thing where Germany sent a note to Mexico saying if you guys would help us.
Mm-hmm. Good. It's called the Zimmerman Note. The Zimmerman Note says exactly what Manny said. The Germans are promising Mexico that if they join Germany against the United States, that all the land that the U.S. took from them is going to be given back to Mexico. Unfortunately for Mexico and for Germany, that note was intercepted by the United States. We dangle it in front of their faces and we say, no chance, Mexico, no chance, Germany, right? Do I think they would have done it, Manny? Is that what you asked? If history would have gone another way, let's say that we would have never intercepted that message. I don't know if Mexico would have joined. I don't know. Fabian.
Mexico told us that they got basically like, I don't know.
Intercepted. You were going to say, Neitha? Okay. So this brings me back to the U-boats thing. It's not necessary that you remember U-boat as much as this word here, unrestricted submarine warfare. Yeah, U-boat subs. So unrestricted submarine warfare, all it means is that at the time Germany had signed an actual pledge with us. They had actually shaken hands with the United States that said, we're going to hold off on bombing any carriers that cross the Atlantic because we don't know if they have passengers or not. So Germany had agreed this with the United States. They actually pledged it with us in what was called the Sussex Pledge. Sussex Pledge. And this pledge was broken by the Germans when they bombed the Lusitania and they sunk it. And this ship sunk with about 120 Americans on board. So it's a British ship that sinks with Americans on board. And this is the point, guys, in 1917, when the U.S. joins the war. Okay? That's it in a nutshell right there. Okay? Yeah.
What was the whole thing